What if the very bedrock of human civilization, the Fertile Crescent that nurtured our first cities and our earliest written words, concealed a truth so profound, so utterly alien, that it would shatter every carefully constructed narrative we hold about our origins? What if beneath the sun-baked sands and the ancient dust of Mesopotamia there wasn't just the echo of human ingenuity, but the silent, dormant hum of technology crafted by beings from beyond our world? This isn't a flight of fancy. From a pulp science fiction novel, it is a question that, when fully explored, demands an uncomfortable reckoning with ancient texts and archaeological anomalies. For millennia, the stories of the Anunnaki, those who from heaven to earth came, have been woven into the very fabric of Sumerian mythology, etched meticulously onto clay tablets in a script so intricate, so utterly foreign to our modern eyes, yet so startlingly clear in its implications. These aren't just creation myths of gods and goddesses shaping the world with divine will. They speak of beings with advanced knowledge, who descended from the heavens, taught humanity, and perhaps engineered our very existence. The conventional academic establishment, with its formidable gates guarded by a staunch adherence to empirical evidence, has long dismissed these narratives as mere anthropomorphic projections of natural phenomena, or the poetic musings of an early, impressionable people trying to make sense of a vast, often terrifying universe. Yet a growing chorus of voices, both within and on the fringes of archaeological and historical studies, suggests a different interpretation, one that demands we look beyond the obvious to the potential existence of ancient, sophisticated machinery buried deep below the very foundations of what we call civilization. Imagine, if you will, the sheer audacity of such a claim. To suggest that the legendary leap from hunter-gatherer societies to complex urban cultures with intricate irrigation systems, advanced astronomical observations, and sophisticated legal codes was not an entirely indigenous human triumph. Instead, it might have been catalyzed, even orchestrated, by an external, technologically superior force. Mesopotamia, the land between the Tigris and Euphrates, is widely recognized as the cradle of civilization. It gave us the wheel, writing, monumental architecture, and the very concept of urban living. But the speed with which these innovations appeared, seemingly from nowhere, has always been a nagging conundrum for historians. It's as if a switch was flicked, illuminating an entire intellectual landscape almost overnight. This abrupt acceleration, this almost impossibly rapid evolution of complex societal structures, is precisely where the Anunnaki hypothesis begins to gain an unsettling yet compelling traction. The ancient Sumerians themselves, whose prodigious intellectual output laid the groundwork for so much of our modern world, spoke of their knowledge being given to them. They documented encounters with beings of immense stature and power, often depicted with wings or strange headgear, who possessed what could only be described as technology far beyond anything known on Earth at that time. They described skyboats that traversed the heavens, fire-breathing dragons that could scorch the earth, and tools that could shape mountains and divert rivers with incredible ease. While these descriptions are shrouded in the poetic language of antiquity, when viewed through a modern lens, they begin to resemble rudimentary attempts to describe advanced mechanical contraptions, aerospace vehicles, or even energy manipulation devices. The implications are staggering, forcing us to consider that the very first stories humanity ever wrote down might not have been mere fiction, but rather historical accounts of an encounter that fundamentally reshaped our species. If this beginning has already made you rethink what you thought you knew, just imagine the revelations yet to unfold. So go on, give us a thumbs up, and hit that subscribe button, because here, every video unearths truths that many are too afraid to even whisper. The fertile plains of Mesopotamia, now largely modern-day Iraq, once hummed with the daily lives of people who built ziggurats, reaching for the sky and canals that brought life to the desert. It was here, amidst the reeds and the rich alluvial soil, that cities like Ur, Uruk, and Eridu rose from the dust, grand and ambitious beyond anything that had come before. The Sumerians, who populated these burgeoning metropolises, left behind a legacy of innovation that continues to astound scholars. Their cuneiform script, pressed into soft clay tablets, documented everything from mundane commercial transactions to epic poems and astronomical observations that rivaled, and in some cases surpassed, those of much later civilizations. They had a sophisticated sexagesimal, base 60 number system, which we still use today for telling time and measuring angles. They mapped the stars with astonishing accuracy, identifying constellations and planetary movements long before the Greeks or Egyptians. The sheer breadth and depth of their knowledge, appearing so suddenly in the archaeological record, has always been a point of academic fascination and, for some, profound unease. How did a civilization, emerging from what we understand as a Neolithic backdrop, achieve such a rapid and profound leap in intellectual and technological prowess? Mainstream archaeology attributes it to a unique confluence of environmental factors, agricultural surpluses, and social organization. But the Anunnaki hypothesis offers a different explanation, an external catalyst. The Sumerian tablets themselves speak of the Igigi, a class of younger Anunnaki who served the elder Anunnaki, and who, according to some interpretations, even had a hand in the creation of humanity to lighten their own toil. These narratives aren't vague, ethereal myths. They are often startlingly detailed, describing complex hierarchical structures, specific roles, and even disputes among these celestial beings. They recount how humanity was fashioned from clay, imbued with the essence of the gods, effectively a genetic engineering project designed to create a subservient workforce. Such stories, when stripped of their mythological veneer, sound eerily like descriptions of a technologically advanced species manipulating the local biology of a nascent planet. And it's not just the stories. There are subtle, yet persistent, archaeological hints that challenge conventional explanations. Consider the UPART phenomenon, out-of-place artifacts, objects that by all accounts simply shouldn't exist in the context they are found. While many are debunked or have conventional explanations, a few remain stubbornly enigmatic. What about the enigmatic cylindrical seals depicting figures with what appear to be wristwatches or strange instruments? Or the incredible precision of some ancient stonework that seems to defy the known tools of the era? Although these are often dismissed as artistic license or misinterpretation, a pattern begins to emerge when viewed through the lens of external intervention. The very notion that advanced entities with capabilities far beyond our own might have been present and influential during humanity's formative years demands a degree of intellectual courage to even contemplate. If this narrative of ancient influence and hidden knowledge has truly captured your attention, it's because this channel delivers precisely the kind of content you're seeking. So, subscribe now and ring that bell, because what's coming next delves even deeper. The true treasure trove of this profound mystery lies not in grand architectural remnants, but in the brittle, sun-dried clay tablets unearthed from the vast undulating mounds of ancient Mesopotamian cities. These tablets, inscribed with the wedge-shaped cuneiform script, represent humanity's first great literary and historical endeavor. The arduous process of their decipherment, a monumental intellectual feat undertaken by dedicated scholars, has slowly, painstakingly brought to light the sophisticated worldview of the Sumerians. Yet amongst the ledgers of sheep, barley, and beer, and the legal codes governing social conduct, lie narratives that challenge the very foundations of our understanding of history. One of the most controversial and therefore most compelling interpreters of these ancient texts was Zecharia Sitchin. His work, based on his own translations of Sumerian cuneiform, posited that the Anunnaki were in fact flesh and blood beings, astronauts from a distant planet, Nibiru, who came to Earth in search of gold. Sitchin argued that the Sumerian texts were not allegories, but historical accounts of these extraterrestrial colonizers and their interactions with early humanity. While Sitchin's interpretations are fiercely rejected by mainstream academics who critique his linguistic methods and selective readings, his work undeniably sparked a public fascination with the Anunnaki and forced a re-evaluation of what these ancient myths could imply. Consider the Sumerian creation epic, the Enuma Elish, which describes a cosmic battle, a primordial struggle that shaped the heavens and the earth. While traditionally seen as a mythological account of creation, Sitchin and others interpret elements of it as a detailed astronomical and cosmological narrative, hinting at an advanced understanding of planetary mechanics and cosmic collisions. Then, there's the Epic of Gilgamesh, perhaps the most famous piece of ancient literature, which tells of a legendary king's quest for immortality and includes a detailed account of a great flood, strikingly similar to the biblical narrative. But within these epic tales, woven into the fabric of the storytelling, are descriptions that, to an open mind, hint at something beyond mere magic. The texts speak of the Anunnaki traveling in chariots of fire or skyboats, terms that, when envisioned through a modern lens, evoke images of advanced aircraft or spacecraft. They describe sparkling metals and heavenly instruments used by these beings, capable of immense power and precision. The god Enlil, a prominent Anunnaki figure, is often associated with a divine storm bird that could unleash devastating winds and thunderous roars, perhaps a description of a powerful atmospheric vessel. Enki, the god of wisdom and water, is frequently depicted with strange, fish-like beings, the Apkallu, who emerged from the primordial waters to impart knowledge to humanity. These Apkallu, often portrayed in art wearing what appear to be suits or elaborate protective gear, are often interpreted as early teachers or engineers, perhaps operating within a challenging terrestrial environment. The academic establishment, for the most part, simply chuckles nervously and dismisses these connections as wild speculation, a desperate attempt to inject modern science into ancient superstition. They argue that applying 21st-century terminology to Bronze Age poetry is anachronistic and academically irresponsible. Yet the stubborn persistence of these themes, the consistency of the descriptions across multiple disparate texts, begs the question, are we, in our modern intellectual arrogance, simply failing to see the obvious? Are we so committed to a singular narrative of human evolution that we blind ourselves to the possibility of external influences? The very ground beneath our feet, the vast arid expanse of Mesopotamia, might just be guarding secrets far more profound than any scroll or tablet has, yet revealed. The whispers from the clay are growing louder, urging us to look not just at what was written, but at what lies beneath. And what indeed lies beneath. For centuries, archaeologists have meticulously scraped away at the surface of Mesopotamia, revealing the layers of ancient cities, temples, and homes. But what if the truly groundbreaking discoveries aren't found in the sun-drenched upper strata, but in the deepest, darkest recesses of the earth, far beneath where human tools typically reach? The idea of subterranean complexes, vast and ancient, hidden beneath the familiar ruins, is a concept often relegated to the realm of fiction. Yet geophysical surveys and seismic readings in various historical sites across the region have, on occasion, yielded anomalous results. Strange density variations, magnetic signatures, and unexplained cavities that do not conform to known geological formations or typical archaeological remains. Consider the area around Eridu, often cited as the first city in the world, founded by the Anunnaki god Enki, according to Sumerian myth. Seismic surveys here and in other ancient sites like Ur and Babylon have sometimes registered unusual patterns deep beneath the surface. These aren't just empty caverns, they suggest structured, perhaps even metallic anomalies. Could these be the vast, buried complexes the Anunnaki might have constructed? Not merely as dwellings, but as operational bases, energy hubs, or even manufacturing facilities for their advanced machines. The very landscape of Mesopotamia, shaped by millennia of alluvial deposits from the Tigris and Euphrates, means that many ancient structures are buried incredibly deep, often several meters below the current ground level. The challenges of archaeological exploration in such an environment are immense. The scorching desert heat, the ever-present dust that chokes every breath, and the logistical nightmares of excavating on such a colossal scale. Not to mention the geopolitical complexities and security concerns that plague modern-day Iraq, making extensive, undisturbed archaeological work a precarious undertaking at best. The logistical hurdles are not merely academic. Imagine trying to conduct a deep geophysical survey in a region that has seen decades of conflict and instability. Every piece of equipment, every archaeological team, every financial resource faces monumental obstacles. This makes it incredibly easy for any truly anomalous findings to be dismissed, ignored, or simply lost in the chaos. Yet, the whispers persist. Some researchers, working away from the public eye, claim to have detected evidence of subterranean structures far too large and geometrically precise to be natural formations, and far too ancient to be human-made with the known technologies of the time. These aren't simple underground chambers. We're talking about vast, multi-leveled complexes, potentially stretching for miles, constructed from materials that resist standard archaeological identification. What kind of structures would these be? Not humble dwellings, certainly, nor even elaborate tombs. If the Anunnaki were indeed an advanced civilization, they would require infrastructure to support their operations on Earth. Energy generation, perhaps from geothermal or even more exotic sources, would necessitate subterranean plants. Large-scale mining operations, especially for gold, which the Sumerian texts repeatedly mention as the Anunnaki's primary motivation for coming to Earth, would involve extensive tunneling and processing facilities, communication hubs, perhaps even stargates or dimensional portals, as some fringe theories suggest, would demand shielded and stable environments, far beneath the shifting sands and the interference of surface life. The very thought conjures images of immense dormant power waiting to be rediscovered, a slumbering giant of technology hidden just out of reach. Have you ever considered how much history truly lies buried, untouched by our shovels, perhaps because it actively resists discovery? Comment below if you've also pondered the secrets beneath our feet, just waiting to be unearthed. If we allow ourselves just for a moment to entertain the audacious premise that the Anunnaki were indeed extraterrestrial visitors, and that their stories are not mere myths, but distorted historical accounts, then the idea of machines ceases to be fantastical and becomes a logical necessity. An advanced civilization would naturally employ advanced technology. But what kind of machines are we talking about? The Sumerian texts, while poetic, offer tantalizing clues that, when reinterpreted through a technological lens, paint a startling picture. Firstly, there are descriptions of instruments that could control water. Enki, the god associated with water and wisdom, is often depicted as having the ability to manipulate the flow of rivers and create fertile lands from arid deserts. This isn't just magic. It sounds remarkably like sophisticated terraforming equipment. Imagine devices capable of desalinating vast quantities of water, channeling it through incredibly efficient irrigation systems, or even altering local microclimates. These aren't the simple hand-dug canals of early Sumer. These are large-scale automated systems, possibly powered by an unseen energy source, capable of transforming entire regions. Such equipment would be enormous, complex, and potentially best housed underground for protection and stability. Then there are the Tablets of Destinies, a powerful object described in Sumerian mythology, which held the fates of gods and men. This object, often depicted as a clay tablet or a series of tablets, was said to bestow ultimate authority and control. What if, rather than a magical artifact, the Tablets of Destinies were a form of advanced computational device, perhaps a central control unit, or a vast database containing critical information, strategic plans, or even genetic blueprints? A machine capable of processing and storing immense amounts of data, perhaps even predicting or influencing outcomes based on complex algorithms. Such a device would be the ultimate power broker, capable of orchestrating events on a planetary scale. Furthermore, the stories of the Igigi, the worker-class Anunnaki, toiling in the gold mines, suggest the presence of highly efficient mining and processing equipment. Modern mining operations are massive undertakings, requiring heavy machinery, advanced geological surveys, and sophisticated material handling systems. For the Anunnaki to extract gold on the scale hinted at in the texts, they would have needed technology far superior to human capabilities of the time. This could involve sonic excavators, energy-based mining tools, or automated systems that could extract precious metals with minimal human or Igigi intervention. These powerful, potentially dangerous machines would again be logical candidates for deep subterranean housing, away from the prying eyes and clumsy hands of nascent humanity. And finally, the most provocative possibility: genetic laboratories. The Sumerian texts, particularly the Atrahasis epic, describe the creation of humanity from clay and the blood of a god, specifically to relieve the Anunnaki of their arduous labor. This narrative, again, when viewed through a modern scientific lens, bears an uncanny resemblance to genetic engineering. If humanity was, in some sense, a biological construct, then the Anunnaki would have required sophisticated genetic manipulation equipment. Laboratories for DNA splicing, cloning, and accelerated growth, perhaps even consciousness transfer, would be necessary. These facilities, designed for the most delicate and secretive of operations, would almost certainly be concealed in vast underground complexes, shielded from environmental interference and protected from discovery. The purpose of these machines, therefore, extends far beyond mere technological convenience. They are integral to the very narrative of Anunnaki presence on Earth, their motivations, and their profound impact on human development. They represent not just tools, but the very instruments of a hidden agenda, silently performing their functions beneath the oblivious tread of human history. The very notion of such subterranean marvels, these Anunnaki machines, is often confined to hushed whispers in dimly lit forums or the fantastical narratives of science fiction. Yet the sands of Mesopotamia, while eternally shifting, hold secrets with an iron grip. One can imagine in a not-too-distant past the chaos and confusion of conflict providing the perfect cover for clandestine operations. During the tumultuous period of the early 21st century, when the ancient land of Iraq was rent by conflict, amidst the roar of fighter jets and the rumble of armored vehicles, the opportunity for unusual discoveries and their subsequent suppression was rife. Imagine, if you will, the story of Dr. Anya Sharma, a brilliant, albeit notoriously independent, British archaeologist from the University of Bristol. Dr. Sharma, with her pragmatic approach and a healthy skepticism towards fringe theories, had always focused on traditional Sumerian pottery and social structures. But during a fraught, officially sanctioned survey mission in the early 2000s, working under the considerable shadow of military escort, her equipment began to behave erratically. It wasn't the usual electromagnetic interference from military hardware. This was different. Her ground-penetrating radar, an expensive piece of kit procured from a specialized firm in Reading, began to register an anomalous signature deep beneath an unassuming windswept tell, far from any major known archaeological site. It was an anomaly so pronounced, so geometrically regular, that it defied natural explanation. The data suggested a vast, structured void, unlike any known geological formation, and its depth indicated something pre-Sumerian, something utterly ancient. The initial discovery was almost mundane, a flicker on a screen, but the deeper Dr. Sharma dug, metaphorically speaking, into the data, the more unsettling the implications became. The signature wasn't merely a void. It suggested metallic compositions, highly organized networks, and immense scale. She presented her preliminary findings to her superiors, expecting academic interest, perhaps even a scramble for funding for a deeper investigation. Instead, she was met with a chilling silence, followed by an abrupt termination of her survey mission. Her equipment was confiscated, her data files mysteriously corrupted, and she was summarily repatriated to the UK with a stern warning about the unstable security situation in the region. But Dr. Sharma was not one to be easily deterred. The anomaly had gnawed at her, a persistent itch in her formidable intellect. Back in her small, cluttered flat in Bristol, surrounded by stacks of academic papers and discarded tea mugs, she painstakingly reconstructed her research from fragmented notes and memory. She began to connect dots, delving into the very fringe theories she had once scorned. The Sumerian texts, which she had previously studied as purely anthropological artifacts, suddenly took on a new, unsettling resonance. The sky chariots, the divine tools, the sudden leaps in Sumerian knowledge, they all began to coalesce around the single, terrifying possibility of what her radar had detected. The official suppression of her findings was perhaps the most telling clue. Why the extreme secrecy? Why the immediate shutdown, the data wipe, the veiled threats? It suggested that whatever lay beneath that Mesopotamian tell was not just academically interesting, it was politically, perhaps even existentially, significant. It implied that powerful entities, governmental or otherwise, were already aware of such anomalies, actively working to control the narrative, to ensure that such profound truths remained buried, perhaps even literally. The isolation she felt was profound. Her colleagues, wary of offending the establishment, distanced themselves. Dr. Sharma found herself alone, a singular academic voice against a chorus of dismissal, armed with little more than a memory and an unshakable conviction that she had glimpsed a truth far older and far more terrifying than humanity dared to comprehend. The veil of secrecy is often thicker than the desert sand. If this narrative of hidden truths and suppressed knowledge truly resonates with you, do give this video a solid thumbs up and perhaps even share it with someone who thrives on unearthing such profound enigmas. Undeterred by the professional ostracism and the palpable chill of official disapproval, Dr. Anya Sharma embarked on a perilous, unofficial quest. Her initial findings, those tantalizing blips on her ground-penetrating radar, had embedded themselves deep within her scientific psyche, refusing to be dismissed. The memory of the geometric precision, the sheer scale of the subterranean anomaly, haunted her waking thoughts and even infiltrated her dreams. She knew with an unsettling certainty that she had stumbled upon something truly extraordinary, something that had the power to rewrite not just history books, but the very understanding of humanity's place in the cosmos. Her clandestine investigation began subtly from the safety of her UK flat. She devoured every available publication, scrutinizing satellite imagery of the Mesopotamian region, cross-referencing ancient texts with modern geological surveys. She learned to navigate the dark web, seeking out forums and obscure papers that dared to touch upon forbidden archaeological topics. She even made cautious, anonymous contact with other rogue researchers, a shadowy network of individuals who, like her, felt that the mainstream narrative was incomplete, deliberately so. These were individuals often dismissed as conspiracy theorists, but in her new, isolated position, Dr. Sharma found a strange camaraderie in their shared pursuit of uncomfortable truths. It was through this network that she acquired a grainy, low-resolution satellite image, taken by an amateur astronomer, which showed a faint, almost imperceptible discoloration in the very region where she had conducted her initial survey. Zooming in, manipulating the contrast and exposure with her own rudimentary software, she noticed something peculiar. A recurring, almost perfect circular pattern subtly etched into the desert surface, barely visible to the naked eye. It was consistent with what might happen if a large, heavy object had once settled there, or perhaps if a massive, subterranean structure had caused a subtle geological subsidence over millennia. The pattern was too regular, too artificial, to be natural. Armed with this, and driven by an insatiable curiosity, Dr. Sharma made the audacious decision to return to Iraq. This time, there would be no official permits, no military escorts. It was a perilous, almost foolhardy undertaking. Through a series of carefully cultivated contacts, local fixer-interpreters with ties to the burgeoning black market of antiquities, and even more dangerously to regional militias, she managed to secure passage to the desolate, windswept stretch of desert. The journey itself was fraught with danger, a harrowing traverse through checkpoints and contested territories, the very air thick with the dust of ages and the lingering scent of conflict. When she finally stood at the site, disguised as a foreign journalist documenting post-conflict reconstruction, the sun beat down mercilessly, creating shimmering mirages on the horizon. The landscape was desolate, unremarkable to the untrained eye, but Dr. Sharma knew what to look for. Using a small, handheld, illegally modified spectral analyzer, she walked the perimeter of the faint circular pattern she had observed from space. The device, which usually struggled to penetrate more than a few feet of soil, registered something extraordinary. Not just a void, but a complex, multi-layered structure of incredibly dense material, far beneath the surface. And then, a faint, rhythmic pulse. Not seismic, not geological, but something else entirely. An incredibly low-frequency oscillation, almost imperceptible to human senses, yet undeniably present. It was a hum, deep and resonant, a vibration that seemed to emanate from the very core of the earth. Driven by an adrenaline-fueled certainty, she managed to bribe a local farmer with a surprising amount of British pounds to let her inspect an old, forgotten well on his property, located suspiciously close to the anomaly's epicenter. Descending into the narrow, dark shaft, the air grew thick with the smell of damp earth and something else, a faint, metallic, ozone-like scent, like electricity in the air after a lightning strike. At the very bottom, beyond the crumbling brickwork, a section of the wall had given way, revealing a small, dark opening. Peering inside, her flashlight beam cut through the ancient gloom, revealing not natural rock, but something unnervingly smooth, dark, and impossibly straight. It was a wall of an unknown, obsidian-like material, perfectly cut and utterly foreign, and embedded within it, glinting faintly in her beam, was a small, perfectly geometric panel, etched with symbols she had never seen in any Sumerian dictionary, symbols that pulsed with a faint internal light. It was real. She had touched a piece of something truly alien, something that had been waiting beneath the Mesopotamian sands for millennia. The fear was immense, a cold dread that squeezed her chest, but it was utterly overshadowed by an electrifying rush of pure, unadulterated scientific exhilaration. She had found it. Or perhaps it had allowed itself to be found. With the undeniable evidence of alien technology in her grasp, Dr. Sharma's mind began to race, grappling with the sheer implications of what she had discovered. That faint, rhythmic hum, that obsidian-like wall, the pulsating symbols, these weren't just archaeological curiosities, they were the very manifestations of the Anunnaki machines, described in myth, now tangible beneath her fingertips. The immediate question that eclipsed all others was, what exactly were these machines designed to do? Their scale, hinted at by the deep radar anomalies, suggested something monumental, functions far beyond simple tools for daily life. One of the most compelling possibilities, and perhaps the most terrifying, was that these machines were colossal energy generators. The Sumerian texts speak of the Anunnaki's immense power, their ability to create and destroy, to control natural forces. What if this wasn't metaphorical, but literal? What if these subterranean complexes housed devices capable of tapping into exotic energy sources, perhaps zero-point energy, drawing power from the very fabric of space-time, or even harnessing geothermal forces on an unprecedented scale? Such a power source could fuel not just a local outpost, but an entire planetary operation, providing the necessary energy for terraforming, advanced communication, or even interstellar travel. The thought of such dormant power lying fallow beneath the earth was both awe-inspiring and deeply unsettling. A flick of a switch, and the very landscape could be altered, or perhaps devastated. Another chilling possibility was that these machines were sophisticated terraforming devices. The Sumerian accounts describe a desolate earth, which the Anunnaki transformed into fertile lands. While traditional history credits human ingenuity with irrigation and agriculture, what if the initial stages, the large-scale conditioning of the environment, was achieved with advanced technology? Machines that could manipulate weather patterns, stabilize geological fault lines, or even purify vast bodies of water. The ability to create a habitable environment, a suitable garden for their operations, and for the newly created human workforce, would have been paramount for the Anunnaki. These devices, perhaps drawing from the legendary Me tablets, a collection of divine decrees and technological blueprints said to govern civilization, could have literally sculpted the early Earth to their specifications. Then there was the distinct possibility of advanced computational or communication hubs. If the Anunnaki were indeed an interstellar species, communication with their home planet, Nibiru, would have been essential. These buried machines could be immense relay stations, capable of sending and receiving signals across vast cosmic distances. Or perhaps they were data repositories, vast libraries of knowledge, chronicling their own history, scientific breakthroughs, and the very genetic code of every species on Earth. The pulsating symbols Dr. Sharma observed could be remnants of a user interface, a dormant display awaiting reactivation. Imagine accessing such a database, unlocking millennia of alien knowledge. It would represent the single greatest paradigm shift in human history, an instantaneous leap in understanding that would render our current scientific progress almost quaint. And finally, the most insidious thought: control mechanisms. If humanity was, as the myths suggest, a designed species, a workforce created for a specific purpose, then these machines could be part of a vast control system. Devices capable of influencing human consciousness, guiding societal development, or even subtly altering our genetic makeup over millennia. A quiet, unseen hand guiding the course of human civilization, ensuring we fulfilled our designated role. This would turn every historical event, every technological advancement, every cultural shift into a carefully orchestrated segment of a grand alien design. The implications for human free will, for our very sense of self-determination, were utterly devastating. These machines, far from being inert historical relics, might be the silent architects of our reality, lying in wait for an activation signal, or perhaps continuously operating at a frequency beyond our current perception. The power they could unleash, the truths they could reveal, or the control they could exert, dwarfed any human ambition, any human fear. The enormity of her discovery, coupled with the chilling certainty of official suppression, propelled Dr. Anya Sharma into an impossible moral labyrinth. The fragment she had retrieved from the subterranean passage, a small dark shard of the obsidian-like material, was unlike anything known to terrestrial science. Back in her makeshift lab in her quiet Bristol flat, under the cloak of night, she had subjected it to every test her illicitly acquired, cutting-edge equipment could perform. It was incredibly dense, yet surprisingly light, and resisted all attempts at standard chemical analysis. Its atomic structure seemed to defy conventional physics, and it emitted a faint, constant energy signature, the same low hum she had detected underground. This wasn't just ancient, it was alien. The scientific impulse within her screamed for disclosure. This wasn't merely a breakthrough, it was a revolution. Every institution she had ever respected, every academic principle she held dear, demanded that this truth be brought into the light, shared with the global scientific community. Imagine the collaborative effort. The brilliant minds from Cambridge, Oxford, and across the world, pooling their intellect to understand this paradigm-shattering artifact. It would redefine humanity's place in the universe, force an urgent re-evaluation of our origins, and propel science into an unimaginable future. Yet a colder, more pragmatic voice whispered warnings. The treatment she had received after her initial discovery was not an anomaly, it was a precedent. Powerful forces, perhaps global governments, perhaps shadowy organizations with ancient agendas, had actively sought to bury this truth. Releasing her findings publicly would not lead to accolades and collaboration. It would lead to ridicule, discreditation, and ultimately, absolute silence. She would be dismissed as a lunatic, her career irrevocably destroyed, and her life quite possibly put in grave danger. She knew all too well the fate of whistleblowers, of those who dared to challenge entrenched power structures with inconvenient truths. The academic world, for all its supposed openness, was often the most resistant to truly disruptive ideas, especially when those ideas threatened to dismantle its very foundations. Her personal life, already strained by her obsessive quest, began to unravel further. Her few remaining friends, mostly academic colleagues, found her increasingly distant, her conversations peppered with cryptic references to unsettling truths and ancient suppression. Her family, particularly her elderly mother, worried incessantly about her safety and her mental well-being, attributing her gaunt appearance and haunted eyes to overwork and stress. How could she explain to them that she was grappling with the possibility that humanity was not the sole intelligent architect of its own destiny, that the very concept of gods might have been a misinterpretation of extraterrestrial scientists and engineers? The burden of this forbidden knowledge was immense, a heavy cloak that isolated her from the mundane comforts of ordinary life. The moral dilemma was a constant, gnawing pain. To protect herself, her loved ones, and her remaining sliver of professional credibility, she could remain silent, allowing the secret to continue its slumber beneath the desert sands. But to do so felt like a betrayal of every scientific principle she cherished, a cowardice in the face of the greatest discovery in human history. The allure of understanding something so profoundly foundational, of being the one to pull back the curtain on this cosmic secret, was almost unbearable. It was a temptation that transcended ambition. It was a primal urge to know, to comprehend, to pierce the veil of ignorance that had shrouded humanity for millennia. She pondered the philosophical implications. If the Anunnaki truly engineered humanity, what did that say about free will, about the human soul, about our purpose? Were we merely biological experiments, forgotten constructs of a distant, more powerful intelligence? The questions were existential, tearing at the very fabric of her belief system, the weight of potential revelation, and the equally crushing weight of potential suppression pressed down on her with suffocating intensity. Dr. Sharma stood at a precipice, staring into an abyss of unknown truths, knowing that whichever path she chose, the consequences would be immense, irreversible, and profoundly lonely. The knowledge she possessed was not merely academic. It was a living, breathing entity, threatening to consume her, demanding an answer to the most fundamental question of all: what is humanity, and who truly made us? The silent struggle within Dr. Sharma mirrored a larger unspoken conflict that simmered on the fringes of global academia, the clash between ancient mythology and nascent scientific inquiry. For too long, these two realms have been treated as entirely separate, often adversarial. Yet what Dr. Sharma's discovery unequivocally demonstrated was a convergence, a terrifyingly logical intersection where the fantastical narratives of the Sumerians ceased to be mere folklore and began to resonate with the stark reality of physical evidence. The shard of alien material, the persistent energy signature, the geometric anomaly beneath the desert, these were not isolated curiosities. They were the undeniable, tangible anchors binding the ethereal tales of the Anunnaki to the unforgiving, empirical world of modern science. The Sumerian texts, which had once been relegated to the anthropology departments, describing beings of light and sky-dwellers who descended to Earth, now felt less like allegories and more like distorted eyewitness accounts. The descriptions of these beings advanced tools that could manipulate the very earth and sky, their ability to create and shape life, now sounded suspiciously like engineering and genetic manipulation. When juxtaposed with Dr. Sharma's findings, the ancient narratives suddenly acquired a chilling prescience. The idea of the Anunnaki establishing advanced outposts, mining operations, and even biological laboratories underground in Mesopotamia was no longer the fanciful musing of a fringe theorist. It was a compelling hypothesis, supported by both ancient testimony and modern, albeit suppressed, scientific data. This convergence posed an existential threat to the established order of thought. Mainstream archaeology and history, built upon centuries of conventional understanding, would have to fundamentally re-evaluate every single foundational text, every cultural explanation, every timeline of human development. The very concept of human ingenuity as a solely indigenous phenomenon would be utterly shattered. It would be an intellectual earthquake of unprecedented magnitude, forcing humanity to confront the uncomfortable possibility of a mentored or even engineered past. Yet despite the overwhelming implications, the evidence remained largely hidden, suppressed by a calculated effort. Dr. Sharma understood that revealing her findings directly to the public without overwhelming, undeniable proof, backed by multiple independent sources, would only lead to her being discredited and her work dismissed as a hoax. The powers that be, those shadowy organizations or governmental bodies seemingly determined to keep this truth buried, understood the fragility of public perception and the inherent human resistance to paradigm-shifting ideas. They knew that a single voice, no matter how scientifically sound, could be easily silenced, easily drowned out by a chorus of mockery and denial. The real danger, Dr. Sharma mused, was not just the machines themselves, but the knowledge they represented. The secrets of an advanced civilization, lying dormant for millennia, held the potential for both immense progress and unimaginable destruction. What if the Anunnaki machines were not merely dormant but waiting for a specific alignment of celestial bodies, a precise energy signature, or perhaps a specific level of human technological development to reactivate them? The Sumerian texts hinted at cycles, at epochs of divine intervention and withdrawal. Could the sudden appearance of advanced knowledge in ancient Sumer have been a partial activation, a controlled release of information to guide early humanity? And if so, what would a full activation entail? The concept of a reawakening became a central, terrifying thought. The low hum she had detected, the faint energy signature of the alien fragment, was it merely residual power or a subtle sign that the machines were, in some imperceptible way, already stirring? The desert winds continued to sweep over the ancient mounds, their ceaseless movement obscuring secrets, burying truths ever deeper. But for Dr. Sharma, the silence was broken. The convergence of ancient myths and modern scientific anomalies had created an undeniable pattern, a tapestry of truth slowly unraveling, revealing a hidden history that pulsed beneath the earth, waiting for its moment to emerge. What would it truly mean for our understanding of history, of ourselves, if these ancient tales were not mere fables, but echoes of a truth long suppressed? Write in the comments, "This is mind-bending," just so I know you're fully immersed in this journey. The escalating tension, the palpable sense of a clandestine race against time, became Dr. Sharma's constant companion. Her solitary investigation, fueled by the alien fragment nestled secretly in her flat, whispered of a truth too profound to ignore. She knew she wasn't the only one seeking answers. The immediate and heavy-handed suppression of her initial findings confirmed it. Others were aware, and they were actively working to control access to and information about these Anunnaki machines. The question now was not if they existed, but who was trying to find them, who was trying to activate them, and what their ultimate agenda might be. The geopolitical landscape of Mesopotamia, already a complex tapestry of ancient grudges and modern conflicts, suddenly took on an even more sinister hue. If these ancient machines truly held the power of terraforming, unlimited energy, or even genetic manipulation, then their control would mean absolute dominion over the planet. The struggle for their discovery, or more accurately, for their reactivation, would inevitably ignite a global geopolitical firestorm, dwarfing any previous conflict. Imagine global superpowers, shadowy syndicates, or even ancient cults, all vying for control of technology that could reshape the world in an instant. The very fabric of international relations, already fragile, would tear asunder under the weight of such an apocalyptic prize. Dr. Sharma's research began to uncover disturbing patterns. She noticed a suspicious increase in archaeological missions to the region, particularly from entities with known military or intelligence ties, thinly veiled under the guise of cultural preservation. Satellite imagery, painstakingly sifted through by her burgeoning network of like-minded researchers, revealed unusual excavations, not in historically significant sites, but in remote, desolate areas, often correlating with seismic anomalies or magnetic disturbances she had identified. It was a race, a silent, deadly game of chess being played out on the ancient plains of Mesopotamia, with the fate of humanity as the ultimate stake. But the most terrifying possibility of all was not what humanity might do with these machines, but what the Anunnaki themselves might do. The Sumerian texts spoke of cycles of presence and absence, of the Anunnaki departing Earth and promising to return. What if the machines were not merely dormant, awaiting human discovery, but were designed to be reactivated by their original creators? What if the subtle hum Dr. Sharma detected was not a sign of residual power, but a prelude, a low-frequency beacon signaling the imminent return of the Anunnaki? The thought sent a cold shiver down her spine. Were they benevolent creators returning to check on their experiment, or stern overseers returning to reclaim what they believed was rightfully theirs? The question was loaded with existential dread. The true power of these machines, if Sitchin's interpretations held any grain of truth, might be far beyond human comprehension or control. What if they weren't merely tools, but sentient entities themselves, or parts of a larger interconnected alien network. Reactivating them might not be as simple as flicking a switch. It could unleash a chain of events, a cascade of dormant protocols that humanity would be utterly powerless to stop. The thought of an ancient alien intelligence reawakening, making its own decisions, implementing its own agenda, was truly terrifying. Dr. Sharma found herself teetering on the edge of a precipice, staring into an abyss of unknown possibilities. The Anunnaki machines beneath Mesopotamia were not just relics of a forgotten past. They were a ticking clock, a silent force waiting to erupt, threatening to shatter the carefully constructed reality of human civilization. The desert wind continued its eternal whisper, carrying secrets and dust across the plains. But to Dr. Sharma, it now sounded like a warning. A warning that the gods of old might not be myths after all, and their magnificent, terrible machines might be on the verge of making their presence known once more, for better or for unimaginably worse. The narrative hung open, a gaping chasm of uncertainty, preparing the way for a revelation that could change everything. And so, as the desert winds of Mesopotamia continue their ceaseless dance across the ancient mounds, sculpting and reshaping the landscape with an indifferent grace, the profound questions remain, etched into the very fabric of our shared human history. We have journeyed through the unsettling possibilities that arise when the hallowed texts of the Sumerians are viewed through a lens unclouded by conventional dogma, when myths are stripped of their poetic embellishments and examined for the stark, technological truths they might contain. From the unexplained leaps in Sumerian civilization to the tantalizing hints of advanced machinery, from the enigmatic prophecies of the Anunnaki's return to the clandestine search for their buried secrets, the story we have uncovered is far from complete. The Anunnaki machines, whether they be gargantuan energy generators, sophisticated terraforming devices, or the very laboratories of human creation, remain largely concealed, their silent hum vibrating just beneath the threshold of our perception. Dr. Anya Sharma's solitary, perilous quest underscores not just the extraordinary nature of these discoveries, but the immense power that seeks to keep them hidden. The obsidian-like fragment, the rhythmic pulse, the geometrically precise subterranean anomalies, these are not mere archaeological curiosities. They are the physical manifestations of a truth that challenges every foundational belief we hold about ourselves and our place in the universe. The mystery deepens with every layer peeled back, leaving us with more questions than answers. Were the Anunnaki truly benevolent guides, simply accelerating humanity's development, or were they cold, calculating engineers, viewing Earth and its nascent inhabitants as a mere resource, a grand biological experiment? Is humanity's sudden flourishing merely a testament to its innate genius, or the carefully orchestrated consequence of extraterrestrial intervention? And if these machines are indeed poised for a reawakening, what will that mean for our species? Will it herald a new age of enlightenment, unlocking unimaginable technological advancements and cosmic wisdom? Or will it usher in an era of terrifying subjugation, revealing humanity's true engineered purpose? The ending, therefore, is not a conclusion, it is a beginning. It is an invitation to look beyond the surface, to question the narratives we have been given, and to consider the extraordinary possibilities that lie buried, not just beneath the sands of Mesopotamia, but within the very annals of our own forgotten history. The stories of the Anunnaki are not just ancient echoes. They might be a foreshadowing, a profound warning from a distant past that demands our immediate attention. The desert wind whispers secrets, and those who choose to listen, those who dare to delve into the depths, might just be on the precipice of a revelation that changes everything we thought we knew forever. The Anunnaki machines are still there, waiting, and so are we, perhaps, for their next move. If this content has genuinely broadened your perspective and sparked a profound sense of inquiry, do make a point of commenting below. Made it to the end. This singular act genuinely assists us in understanding who among our audience truly seeks knowledge beyond the superficial. Please give this video a thumbs up if it truly compelled you to think differently, and subscribe to the channel right now to ensure you don't miss the subsequent chapters of this unfolding journey. And for an immediate continuation, simply click on the content that has now appeared on your screen. Trust me, you absolutely will not want to pause your exploration here.